Okay. So today we are going to cover some one thing, that is fetch data from the server, the API, right? So in the class-based component. So that I want to show one demo, but I want to make sure one thing, that in your system React Dev Tools that is installed or is present or not. I'm just sharing my screen. This thing. My screen is visible. Can I please confirm this thing?
Not that.
This one. You have to add this thing from your extension, right? So what happened means in our code means, if you see, that is one simple code. So if you debug or if you see that div element, so everything in the HTML, right? We cannot understood that from where which component it's coming, or how we can get the value from which component. So if you install these things in your system, add as add-ons, so you can get this type of means in that components, right? So components will get value. Minute. Yeah. So you can get that in the app, and props. The props are not added, so that, so this kind of things you will get. So you can understand that from which component, what props, what state I have used inside that, right? So that will be very helpful. So I recommend that React developers tools that you have to add in your system. Now, I will one small demo, that is for fetch the data from API, and that data will show in the table, and table has edit button, and we have to edit this row. That how I can do in the React, and that is class based component. Well, let's start. So I'll remove this thing. So in functional component, what I will write, that uh, function and then class name, right? And the function name. Now in the class based component, we have to create the class and extend react.component. That means my app class, I am allowing to access React component properties method in my class, because the render method is there. So earlier we have to add the return. In the return, we have to return the d by JSX syntax is over there, and we're going to execute the things. But in that app, we have to extend the React component. Otherwise, if we remove this thing, so render is not coming by default, right, in the class, because it cannot recognize what is render in the class. But when we extend that React dot component, render method is coming. That means it's a method from the React component. I'm allowing my apps to add inside my application. That hello. Okay. Now I'm create render, and if I write function component, write one function component, one app. There I have to add return. No, render I have not added in the function component, but here I have to add render. Inside the render method, I have to add return. And what I will do, I will create one div. Anything you can pick, div or React fragment. any class. So class name. Simple class name I've added. And now I am going to create other component and that will add over here. So let's see what I will do. I'll create one here. I'll create one import React from React and import or class extend component. If you will component, if you add over here, you have to import. Otherwise, you can do react.component. And then you have to render and return. And what I'll do, I have to export default server data. The app I have to import server data from dot server data and pass that one props, that is one heading I have to pass from here. Export this string, export default app, that I have to export in the server data. I have to write the logic and what I will create. I have to create one environment file. Inside the environment.js, I have to create .js. So in API, REST API, what is the REST API? HTTP is something uat.com/ some value is value, right? So this is my base URL. This is my base URL, and rest of the things, if you calling the function name, the base URL and function name create the REST API. So this base URL I will keep aside in that environment.js file. So tomorrow my base URL might be changed. Base URL might be dynamic, or it can be built as per the environment. So that's why best practice is that you should keep the base URL in the file. So my API I collected from the W3C tool, and that is the publicly available. There is no any, I have to do nothing. Just add the base URL over here and export folder env. That file I've created. what you'll do, the server data, I have to input the file. Environment. And I will create my final API. Const API is equal to env class dot php. My entire URL should be like that. First, I need to check this is working or not. Yes, this value, right? That I have to grab in my React application. Yeah. So my file, I think, not saved. Okay. Yes. No, it's there. Now, some concept. Props and then super props. Here, I will create my state first. So you all know that constructor is first we are invoke the constructor, right? So that props and super props I can pass. So super props means that if I have two classes and I have to inherit something, some properties from the class A to the class B, and from the class B we are going to make the new object. So that time super means that that will invoke that this object I can allow my class B from the class A. So in that is the concept of super. And then constructor has been created first. In this class-based component, we need one constructor. And inside the constructor, I will create the state, and then this is the method constructor and other life cycle. Like here, I will use component did mount. That life cycle I will use here for getting the value. So now I'm creating the these state. I'm taking one loader and making false. and I will write on const. First, create the component did one method. So in the component did one method, that this is life cycle in the React class-based component. First constructor will be invoked, and component did one will work when we call the component. After calling the component, that the first component will be rendered and then component inbound will work. So ideally updating the in the function component for getting the data from, we are using that in the class component. And we need to require one Axios package. So you can see Axios. So that required for you are using calling the data from API. So it's a HTTP client module Axios, or you can use Fetch, or if you are using jQuery like this kind of things, or JavaScript, you can use XML HTTP request. jQuery, I suggest that no need, means generally avoid in the React application, because it's the third we React, we same thing we are going to update in the React DOM only with the help of React syntax, React application. We no need to go for the DOM manipulation purpose, install that jQuery, adding the jQuery library. That is not recommended. So you are using either Axios or Fetch. So I'll install the Axios. So those are using from the laptop, then npmi Axios. You install, same thing will be there. So by default, what I will do, this dot set state is loading false. I will do is loading is true, and we calling the API. So in the jQuery or JavaScript, so you have to create the loader, right? That loader we need before calling the API, and then when the data is coming from the server, we need to stop the loading. So that's why by default loading, my loading is false, and now in the component did mount, I will collect the data, and before connecting to the Axios, we need some loading should be true. So loader should be there, right? Yes, you have to import this package. Import. Then or the API get. We'll break the line, then we'll get a response. If response dot status 200, I'm clicking that. If I'll get the response, and I'll check also response status is 200. Hello?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, you're audible, right? Ah.
Yes,
So
yes,
this response
yes.
dot status, I what I'll do, I get the response and fill this array. I'll push this new object in the array records response dot data but records. I will take a record 1 minute. I don't know why the system is good. I'll do one thing. Download this thing and then I will write because I think some problem. 1 minute. One minute because something is causing problem in the code sandbox. I'll write here. Continue. Is loading. Any questions on that part? Hello.
Yes, you're audible.
Yes.
I'm asking, is there any questions in this part currently?
No.
Okay.
So here we use gate and then we are applying
Hmm.
then. So the gate
Uh,
returns.
Gate is a method, the Axios. Okay, Axios. I have been. I have
Your voice is breaking.
Gosh, I think your
configured the
network
Axios, right?
issue from
Axios
your
packaging.
side. Your voice is
And
breaking.
you can see that import Axios from Axios, right? And
Kaushik, your voice is
here
breaking.
again join. Okay, just give me 1 minute.
Yeah.
Hello. Now I am audible.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So
Yes.
Axios I have configured right in my system, and then in dot get is the method from Axios. You can see. So method, right? And I will.
Sorry, screen is not shared.
Sorry. Can you confirm my screen is visible or not, please?
Yes.
Yes.
So Axios I have input, right? And from that Axios, I will get this method get axios.get. So in the get method, I pass the API name. API name, how from where I will get, that is my API name, Angular customer.php, and here concatenate with the environment variable, right? So you can see that const environment, this is the API.
I
Hello.
think in environment only we have to store the domain name. Hello, Kaushik. Are you there? Yes.
Hello. So this is the environment name, and that is my API name. So both I have concatenate in one place, right? And then the API is created. This API, what I will do, I will get the API and got the response, right? This response, whatever I response I got, that response dot records. From records, from where it will coming? My screen is visible, right?
Yes, yes,
And I am also audible, right? 1 minute.
yes.
So records, from where I will collect? Records is there. From the API, you can see the records, right? In the records, all the records name are showing, right? So what I will do, that's why I have added response.data.records. Response is data from coming the API and then records. And loading, I don't use any loading because the loading was there when the data was coming. Now I set the loading false. I update the state is loading false. Okay, it's clear that what
Kaushik, your voice is breaking, so we can't understand what exactly the concept of loading, true and false.
and then I will this hello, right? So is loading, you can see by default when I create the state, that time is loading I set false. Okay, am I audible right now?
Yes.
Is loading false. Okay, so I this is my method. That method providing from the React. That is the life cycle hooks method, right? Component did mount.
Okay.
Inside the component did mount that I am not created. You can see called, if you hover, it tells called immediately after a component is mounted, and setting state here will trigger re-rendering. So that is the best place. You have to call the API from class-based component. And if you remember, in the functional component, I used use effect hooks, right? Same thing. In class-based component, I use component did mount. And component did mount, what I will do before calling the API is loading true, means loader keep going on until data is coming from the server and rendered in the view, right? That's why true. And I got the data. That means we no need require any loading. So is loading, I kept it false. And records, I earlier records were your empty array, means then I have to add the records from the response data the records. Is it clear now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So now what I will do in the render function, this structure records is loading this dot state. And I got the server data as a props, right? Remember from the server data app, I pass the data. Now I write the logic if is loading return You can see that loading is coming, right? Means loading the logic I have had. Then return. What I will do, div class name data. Each one tag I will take each one and each one. And I will create one tail. One and a class name will be
Kaushik,
yes.
uh, can we? Why we are not following the separation of concerns in React? Like we have HTML separate, CSS separate in Angular, right?
So
But
class
in
name I will add. I am not writing the class. Means that class name I have added.
no separation of concern. That means you are not separating the HTML part and JS part.
No, it's a JSX, na? You can
Okay,
see
okay,
JSX. We cannot separate. That is in the React component. We use JSX. That means
okay,
JavaScript and HTML we can both write in one place and the render.
okay.
But
I think on build it separates, na?
Huh? What?
When we build, so then it creates the structure, na? When we build this application, so then it creates the structure, right? So it separates the CSS and all that, right? We no need to concern with, we
Hmm.
no need to be concerned with that, right?
CSS. Yes, yes, yes. CSS right? And also create that if any further CSS required, so I add the CSS file over here. So multiple ways you can add the CSS in the React. You can use inline CSS, you can use external CSS, you can use that thing. Okay. So whatever you are doing, but it's a JSX part, so we can configure both JavaScript and JS. So you want JS HTML part should be there, different. Hello?
Yes.
So HTML part here we have to configure both things because in the JSX we can write.
Okay,
JS
okay.
part and JavaScript part is you can see the JS inside the JS I'm writing. Even you are using the TSX file, then also you can write these things. Okay. But
Okay,
if you want to means like create some buttons, widgets, right? That
okay,
time create one template. From that template we can write, but that also be JS. We no need to consider any HTML part. HTML only one. That is public index.html.
okay. Okay.
Okay.
However, the complexity, whatever the complexity, we are writing the template inside the JS only.
Means if you
Suppose there is a
separate, means if
complex
you have
UI, complex template.
uh, So I'm telling, means if in your UI, some buttons are there, right? Some
Yes.
pop-up are there, right?
Yes.
So you will keep one thing widgets. You can create one widgets folder. The widgets folder button one template you can create with parameter, right?
Yes. Yes.
So you have to call, because it's a component, you have to call the button and pass the parameter. Like suppose that you want large button require, you want small button require, right? The color
Mhm.
also be red, blue. So that should be a parameterized.
Okay.
And you have to pass that and that will be rendered. So my own one template is there with the parameter I can pass and create.
Okay.
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 But until and unless everything is JS here in the React.
Okay.
I don't know today is a heading. The heading I got it from a name city country. And here I require one edit button. Now in P-body, what I will do, I will create separate component P-body. The P-body records, that records mean this is the record. Dot map. What I will do, I will return one separate component. That is table 2. And I will pass the data inside this component. Okay. Equal to what I will do, x. In the prop, I will pass the value and here key. Now what I will do, I will create one component. That is your table row.js. Table row.js. I will create one Same thing. React from React class table row extends React dot component and in the constructor what I will do, I will pass the data from my table to my table row component from this component. Okay, so I have to import table row from so table row component. I will pass this thing. What is it? This my table. Closing the okay. Equal impact suitable. Yeah. On the table row, I'll pass this data, and here I have to bind the value. What I will do in the render method, I am not taking anything currently. The render method. Just written here, here, city, city, one data set name, dot name, copy, here I will take one TD, inside the TD, just one button, no, edit. Let's see, I don't record currently. Coming from export default. Let's check once again. It is not required currently. That value I get, right? I'm not adding any edit functionality. That normally this name, city, country, that will come. Any question on that part? So keep aside this table row component. You have to pass that value from it. And different component I have created. And here I will button and the name I will pass it as per the data, this data. Okay. Edit functionality also be created. You got some time. Hello.
Yes, Kaushik.
So you got right this thing. Is there any question? Create and because today the system is not working very good way. So up to that, next day, that edit functionality, that button and some CSS I will show you. Okay. Or if you have any questions, you can connect to me and you can ask me now. The CSS part I have to add and button functionality, edit functionality that I have to add.
Yeah, at for now, no question, Kaushik. Will ask you.
So
Yeah.
you were able to stay 10 or 15 minutes more. So this flow I will create, I will complete the model and then get the value from the. If you have time, so then I will connect. Then I'll continue. 10 to 15 minutes is required. All there, then I'll show you. Hello.
Yeah. आप नेक्स्ट डे कर सकते हैं नेक्स्ट डे
Next day, other topics also be covered, na? Next day. So what I will do in the next day, I will keep ready my code and I will demonstrate, not doing in front of you, okay? Because
Yes, okay.
other topics I have to come, that part. Okay? So
Okay.
from the next day, one new topic I will introduce and this part I will show you that you understood that code, how to create the API, means that API functionalities, how to connect from the class-based component. As today's demo is we're totally on the class-based component I've created, right? So functional
Yes.
component, class-based component, two part you have done. Next day, that one new topic I will introduce, something Redux or like this kind of things. Okay.
Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
Kaushik. Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. And I will add the code in your drive with the entire code base. Okay.
Okay.
With the class CSS I will add and I will update. Thank you all. Bye.